Welcome to Natural Born Talents. Today's subject is about the various kinds of psychological and biochemical addictions people can trap themselves within the matrix. In other words, how to overcome or to heal yourself from these various destructive behaviors. The main focus will be the yellow aura. They have two issues that they need to deal with. One, the psychological issue, and two, the biochemical addiction to various substances, which includes gambling, computers or smartphones, AI, and the like. And I'll get into more of that as we go along. Now remember, the matrix is made up mostly of a lot of negative things, particularly these days, that have replaced all of the beautiful things we once had. Everything is fake now. We have fake food, we have fake news, we have fake rage, we have fake entertainment, we have fake politicians, we have very shoddy, almost fake housing. Everything is almost virtual now. Fake relationships, AI, and the like. And all of these things are destructive to the human psyche and can be very addictive. The Borg blog video sort of explains that in a campy way. Back in the 70s, everything was much closer to nature than it is now. It seems as though the Borg has really taken over this world in a way. And sex and sexuality has become so disgusting, especially with the AI and these other things, that the natural beauty of sex and sexuality is almost lost. The comic books that I'll be putting out in the future, which I've been working on for many years now, and was delayed specifically for this reason, will explain how relationships work with each other in a healthy way. There are issues with the individuals that they have to overcome. That's explained within the comic books. But generally, they make it out of the matrix. They are not bombarded by all the negative things within this world. Again, our ancestors are sexual healers. They see pornography as a way of enslaving people sexually, as well as many of these other political issues that have nothing to do with sexual freedom whatsoever. Quite the opposite. The sexual deviant or decadents will say one thing and the moralist will say another, not realizing that both of them are pretty much corrupt and have nothing to do with real sexual freedom or the control over lust. Again, our ancestors do not judge if you're stuck in any of these things. We hope that you don't corrupt yourselves. However, it is a good idea not to misuse all of these tools such as AI and the like. Now, I do use AI in these videos. It's unfortunate, but AI is very convenient. But if you use it as a tool and not get entrapped or enslaved by it, it should be okay. But that's, again, a very tricky thing to get around sometimes. Also, our ancestors do not judge people who are in the porno industry, per se. And the reason for this is that they know they're dealing with lust and sexual fantasies and stuff that a lot of people can't achieve in this world at this time for many different reasons. Again, the problem being is too much is too much. When do you cut it off? When do you move on from it? When do you do something else? If you get too addicted to it, you might destroy yourself. So the judgment really is not about, oh, you're doing that, that's wrong, or that's too old or too young, or whatever stupidity the matrix has to deal with. It has to deal with the energy that is used. If you're following a negative energy or a negative practice too much, you will corrupt yourself with it, and that's the point. Outside of this world, our ancestors do not play with those energies. They play with very nurturing, very loving energy, and everything that's practiced in the matrix is done very differently on the other side. So again, the challenge in the matrix is really not to corrupt yourself. One of the biggest issues I'm seeing now, though, is that many people who are corrupt within the matrix are displacing their issues on others. This is very unfair and very disturbing. You will see within people's psyche who are perfectly normal, loving beings having these issues that really don't belong to them. They belong to their parents, their sister, their brother, their friends, their neighbors, and has nothing to do with them. This is largely due to the matrix collapsing, and those who cannot be cured will be lost forever, and they're trying to hang on by displacing their issues on others. And they're doing it in very nasty and ugly ways. Right now they're using the Borg blob as their weapon of choice, but that only makes them worse. The rest of us who are struggling within that suffer for sure, are in a lot of pain, but when it ends, we're free. They're not, and that's the problem. Because it means that you're going to likely have to discipline yourself and your loved ones much more diligently in order to overcome these issues, because you're not only overcoming your own issues, you're overcoming other people who cannot be cured. And that is very, very unfortunate. Now let's go over the issues of each aura very quickly, and specifically the yellow aura, because they have the most addictive personality of all the auras, and I'll get into that in a moment. But the first aura is, of course, the orange. The orange's biggest issue is to overcome the need to take risks that will eventually destroy themselves. The challenge in the physical world is a lot of fun. The thrill is very exciting. But the problem is that they have a tendency to overdo it. They sacrifice things that they need to be doing in life in order to have a cheap thrill. And that's where they need to balance themselves. There's nothing wrong with challenging the physical world at all. But when you start sacrificing loved ones, or sacrificing your life, or sacrificing all these things just for a cheap thrill or performance, well, that is the first thing you need to overcome. To do that, the first thing you have to do is, of course, get out of denial. You have to be aware of the issue inside your psyche and soul. Once you do that, you need to take steps in order to curb your thrills. I never recommend to anybody stopping anything 100%, because that's not what you're here for. You're here to experience a physical thrill, but to balance it within your life. And this is true for any of the addictions, which I'll go into as we go along. Too much is too much. Just right is just right. Too little is
did you
not
hear
good.
That? It sounded like a glittery whisper.
Moving on from it. The biggest issue I have in this world is a lot of people don't take risks in order to experience the things they need to experience. You cannot overcome any of these issues by doing nothing or by just resisting. Role-playing it out is something far more advisable than doing nothing, in my personal opinion and experience. Role-playing allows you to see, to experience, to incorporate your being the issues that you are working with. And again, in the comic books, that's going to be laid out thoroughly. However, having said that, you do have to be very aware that too much can cause harm not only to yourself, but to others. And this is something you want to avoid. So getting control over these little demons is the key. Now let's get back to the auras. The second aura is the red, and usually their two issues are lust and rage. And again, both of these things need to be cured when they get out of hand. Too much violence, especially when it's causing abuse to other people. Too much lust, again, for the same reasons. Sexual play is a lot of fun. There's nothing wrong with that, and reds know this instinctively. However, they need to be aware when too much is too much, when it's causing harm to themselves or to others. And this, to practice that, of course, is through a lot of physical exercising, through specifically, a lot of weight trainers can do this, but other sports like martial arts even, all of these things are very good for curing that, or at least alleviating some of the needs. But also good physical sexual play is key in order for them to allow that physical release, which is so necessary for the red aura. If they don't do this and pent it up, it can turn to some very violent and very destructive behavior. Again, if you want any more details on any of these issues, please ask in the comment section below. The next aura is the magenta. They have a tendency having the issue when freedom and commitment have a very blurry line between those two worlds. And if they can find a partner who understands commitment but also allows for a lot of freedom, they can do well. Otherwise, they are likely to have multiple relationships trying to find a safe haven, which is very difficult these days. So the magenta loves to explore, and like the other two auras I just mentioned, they're very physical. So having said that, they do like their fantasies and so on, but again, they need to curb it. Self-awareness is key. Understanding that the magenta needs to be free, but also needs to put some sort of boundaries that their friends and partners can understand and work with. If they do not do this, they can lead into very destructive behavior. I've seen some magentas deny their natural instincts to the point that they become moralists. Once you become a moralist, what you're telling me and the rest of the world is that you're denying your needs or your wants or your desires and condemning others for having those needs, wants, or desires. This is a very silly path to take, but many people do it. Now, next is the yellow, and this is unfortunate for the yellow, but they have many addictions. They have addictions to money, and they're not very good with money. They have addictions to sugar, alcohol, tobacco, drugs, adventure, sex, gambling, AI, computers, smartphones, over socializing, and many, many more. The reason for this, again, is the yellow is a biochemical aura. It's connected to the biochemical world, so that makes it very easy for them to be addicted to any of these things I just mentioned without actually having a psychological reason. But most do. Most have a psychological reason and a biochemical reason. Again, the first step is self-awareness. But the yellow has to, because they like to play so much, they have to put in extra effort to self-discipline themselves. And this means they need to realize they have to replace these negative stimulants with things in nature. If they like sex, they should probably find some good partners that they can practice in a healthier manner than being just promiscuous, for example. There are, of course, many other ways they could try this. They need to stay off of things like computers, games, and these other things that can addict them and bring them into the pornography side of AI and games. And this, of course, will lead them to sacrifice things in life that they need to be doing in order to fill a dopamine fix. And that's what pornography is all about. It's really about a dopamine fix. It does not nourish you. It entraps you. And to get around that, you have to play with positive energy as opposed to the negative energy with the various stimulants we have within the matrix at this time, which seem to be designed to enslave people in the first place. You're spending more time on your phone, on a computer, on a game, than interacting with your loved ones. And this is very, very disturbing. As we go on with the yellow a little bit more, the other things they have to be aware. Again, the yellow loves to play. They want to be out with people. They want to be doing things. They shouldn't be staying home doing nothing all day long. They should be very, very active in their lives. And again, these things are all very healthy. It's when they overdo it, when it starts causing issues, they need to pull back. Denying any of these activities completely would be just as destructive. They need to balance, and that's true for all of the auras. A little bit of this and a little bit of that is perfectly fine. Too much of one thing is not. Not doing any of these things or not trying any of these things or not experiencing any things is equally destructive, because you won't evolve from it. Now let's go on to the next aura. The next aura is the physical tan, or the green tan, or the general's aura. Now this is the aura that really lives in fear because they can't control their environment. So they tend to be very, very stubborn. And their issue really is the lack of control. Because they don't have control over their physical world, they can shut down rather easily. Very cautious to open up relationships. I have a specific comic book about their sexuality and how they can overcome that particular issue if they have it. These are very sexual beings, but at the same time, unlike the yellow, they are much less playful and much more reserved and much more cautious than the adventurous yellow is. Next, we get into the logical linear thinkers, and the first one being the tan aura, and they are the little professor aura, tend to be usually male, though there are some who are female. These are logical step thinkers, and like the physical green-tan aura, they do tend to be a little bit overcautious and not very good at communicating with things. Their addiction usually is something like a computer or technology that they like to tinker with. And again, once they're aware of that, they can start to move on to other things that are much healthier for them. So the same advice would apply, is to move on from getting out of your head and start working around their lack of emotional expression and start dealing with emotions that they tend to suppress. If they don't, they could get into things like alcohol or drugs in order to escape that. I've seen some of my friends end up there because they never could deal with their emotional issues or their emotional awkwardness or lack of social skills. Next would be the red-tan aura, and the red-tan aura has some unique issues as well. They have a problem with being a little bit too childlike and too misunderstood because they are holistic thinkers, random thinkers, and they have a hard time expressing exactly what they're seeing or what they're thinking for people to understand. So they need to be aware of their childishness or childlike behavior, their need to please others, which many do. But the main issue is their inability to communicate exactly what they're thinking for others to understand and to be a little bit less awkward and childlike. Their addiction to this world tends to be wanting to please others without realizing that that never works. Moving on to the next aura is the green. The green can be very addicted to money. They are the natural money makers. So greed is a big issue with them. They can make tons of money and they can live their lives for the sake of making money. And this is something that they want to curb or avoid. Being self-aware. I've seen many greens, because they're very intelligent, very quick-minded, use their ego in order to make an enormous amount of money, but absolutely destroy themselves doing it. Once the green aura realizes they need to play more, to sacrifice a little bit of time and money to enjoy life, well, they're on the right path. Again, balance is key. The next group are the emotional auras, and these groups can get addicted to emotional issues rather easily. The first one is the blue-tan aura, and this aura has a tendency to get addicted to doing the right thing for the humanity and community, not realizing they are often doing the opposite. The addiction to doing virtue signaling or doing volunteer work for the goody two-shoe reasons or for a religion or for any of these things is actually very destructive. What they need to understand is that helping other people is a very good idea, but many within this aura tend to overdo it, sacrifice things in their life for others. They need to spend time on themselves in order to move themselves forward. They also can get into self-righteousness of that what they're doing is benefiting humanity or animals or whatever within the world when it's actually not. And that's hard for them to get around that denial. Many do not. But many do. Don't get me wrong. Many figure this out and said really to help humanity because this aura is designed to do something like this. But many times I've seen this aura take it in direction politically usually, where it has nothing to do with helping humanity, but really enslaving it. But they say with an emotional point of view, no, this is the right thing to do. It makes me feel good inside.
I can't believe this is happening. I'm
Similarly,
so sad.
Blues can
Why
get
does
caught
everyone
in the
have
same
fun
kind
except
of dilemma,
me?
but on a more personal level. They like helping people just as much. They are the mother, natural, nurturing auras. But there are several issues that they need to recognize. And the first one being is that helping others is a good idea. But like the blue tan aura, you can overdo it. This aura tends to be extremely emotional and therefore see the world through emotional needs, which can distort their view or vision of something that is more sound and concrete. Having said that, the real issue, though, with this aura is appreciation. They have a very hard time saying no to others, and therefore can be misused and used without being appreciated. This causes them a lot of emotional trauma, and they end up, for example, shopping for things they don't really need, watching a drama on TV while eating too much cake or ice cream or something like this, or other selfish or depressive behavior. They need to realize to enjoy life is A, get in control of their emotions, and B, overcome the need to please others at the expense of their own needs. In other words, to say no and to mean no, and work on their own issues as well as their immediately family issues or community issues. In my personal opinion, I think the blue is more geared towards family issues, working with nurturing children particularly. I find them very, very keen on a lot of things. But again, at the same time, they need to look after their own spiritual, emotional, and physical growth. Now, the next aura is the violet. Now, this is the aura that I have the most trouble with because they are almost always addicted to ego, especially these days. These are controllers, narcissistic in their behavior. To a point, they can be very, very destructive, very powerful within this world at this time. However, those who have overcome their ego and their addiction to ego can control their ego or use their ego for good. They are amazing. They are very interesting people. There are a couple of the comic books that explain this in detail, how the violets in those stories overcome their lust, overcome their need for ego in order to spiritually grow from themselves and others. And when that happens, it's very, very beautiful. And the stories, by the way, are very real. These are the people who I know on a personal level, who are going to make it out of the matrix, who took the steps to make it out of the matrix, to stop living in the denial of the matrix. The violet can be very, very interesting, but also can be very destructive because of their need for the use of ego. The last group is the spiritual group, the so-called spiritual group, which is the lavender, the crystal, and the indigo. Now, the lavender's biggest problem is fantasy. The fantasy worlds in other dimensions and timelines are very real. The problem is that the lavender can entrap themselves with things like comic books, games, or many of these other stimulants that reflect only a smidgen of what's real in those worlds, but enough to enslave them. They need to realize why those worlds are very real. They are not something you can escape to from this world so easily, and therefore need to focus in this reality as well as playing and dabbling in those realities. Again, balance is key. Many of the lavenders I known in this life had ended up being on computer games or manga or many of these other things that reflect those worlds, but at a very shallow level. When you see the real meaning of those worlds, such as the worlds of the fairies, they're much deeper than anything explained in this world at this time. But the lavender forgets that and wants to go back there because they remember it instinctively within their psyche. And they need to realize that this world doesn't work that way. So they need to kind of grow up a little bit and get off the addiction of fantasy. The next is the crystal. Now, the crystal can be addicted to healing, which is a very funny thing to say, but it's true. Crystals don't realize there are people in this world they cannot heal. No matter what they do, those people are going to stay psychologically, physically, or emotionally destroyed because they allowed themselves to be so. The crystal just wants to complete their mission and go back to the other side because they instinctively know that heaven is much better than this world, and this world is full of all kinds of things that do not fit their pristine view of the universe, which is much better than anything in this world. However, they do get addicted to healing. They're constantly trying to help others, not like the blue or the blue tan ore, but by doing medical or natural forms of healing without realizing that they can't really heal everyone. The crystal needs to realize that opening up a clinic, for example, could benefit a lot of people, but it's not going to benefit those who can't be healed. An ideal scenario would be having some sort of healing clinic that is designed only for the ones that they can figure out who they can heal.
Here to heal your soul and maybe fix your
The last is the indigo aura, and the indigo aura can perceive to be having an ego, but it's not really ego because they seem to know everything, because they do know everything. They are a complete human psyche and soul, but they can get addicted to many things in this world because of their lack of ability to communicate with others or to socialize with others because they're such different beings. The main issue I see with this aura that they need to overcome is to balance their loneliness or their uniqueness with the matrix. In order to do this, they have to sacrifice certain things they know are not really good things to sacrifice. And many of the indigo auras are so strong-willed, they will be very reluctant to do that. But again, that will be up to the individual indigo aura, since most of these people know themselves quite well and know others quite well because they've been through the matrix many, many times and have mastered it. This will not be too much of an issue. Really, the basic thing about the indigo aura is just coexisting with the crap within the matrix until they leave, or until the transition comes along, and then of course that won't matter. Well, that's all for this video. I hope you found it informative. In the next videos, in the next comic books series, you will see how these auras interact with each other in order to heal themselves. It's a lot of fun and it's very deep. So unlike the world we have of just everything being fake, everything being virtual. As far as videos on auras are concerned, I'll still be making them, but they're going to be shorts. What I see on a daily routine. This will help you understand how each aura works on a daily routine. Well, thanks again for watching. Hope to see you in the next video. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments section below. I'd be happy to answer them. And again, thanks for watching.
Fine, but it doesn't get there till 5 or 6 o'clock, which is the end of the day, so I'm fine, except when I have to work late, which I usually do.